Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's The Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. This hour, we explore what it looks like when a sports organization openly celebrates all people. During Pride Month for the last decade, Detroit City Football Club holds a doubleheader Pride Night game. And later, we hear why affirming sexual and gender identity for BIPOC people creates psychological strength. But first, have you ever watched a baseball game and felt like the scoreboard was suddenly about something way bigger than the score? That's basically what happened earlier this month. Local news outlet, the San Francisco Standard, reported that a few Giants pitchers wrote Bible verses on their Pride Night caps. What followed wasn't really about baseball at all. The Giants put out an apology, the league issued warnings, then a U.S. senator got involved, and eventually so did the Department of Justice, all because of a baseball cap. Here in Detroit, we've kind of been having a quieter version of that same conversation for 10 years now. Except here, there's not a fight happening about it. Since 2017, Detroit City FC's supporters group, the Northern Guard, has turned every goal scored in June into real money for the Ruth Ellis Center. The Ruth Ellis Center has supported LGBTQ plus youth in Detroit since 1999. The kicker about the Northern Guard supporters is that they weren't persuaded by a senator who's watching. There aren't commissioners writing memos. It began with just 5 guys who started something in the stands. Then 10 years later, it has raised over $300,000. So while the rest of the sports world spends time arguing about what a hat is allowed to say or isn't allowed to say or who can be celebrated out loud, here in Detroit, Prideraiser is live and has gained nearly $33,000 in proceeds this month so far. Jam Johnston is a board member of the Northern Guard supporters, and Jake Lenz is Director of Development and Advancement at the Ruth Ellis Center. They both join me now on the Metro. Welcome to the Metro.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. So Jam, Prideraiser, it started in 2017 as a $5,000 campaign split between 2 causes. How did Prideraiser get started? I know it had something to do with spit.
We had some friends down in Chattanooga, Tennessee, who were in another supporters group who also same kind of vibes as us, flying pride flags in the stands and supporting their LGBTQ community. And they had a supporter down there that had a problem with that, was complaining about rainbow flags in the stands. So our friend Galen, who was headed up the supporters group down there, the Chattahooligans, decided that he was going to donate $5 per goal scored by their team that month to the local organization that they supported in this guy's name out of spite, just to, give them a little screw you and say, we're still going to do good regardless of what you think.
Yeah.
And back then, soccer Twitter was big. That was our main mode of communication and things like that. So our friend Dean Simmer and a few people here in Detroit said, well, we'll do the same. We'll also donate per goal to the Ruth Ellis Center, our favorite local org, and let's make it a competition. Let's see who can raise the most for their local organization. And it started with 2, and less than $5,000 that year has grown to a huge amount. And now, as of this year, we have actually, as of last week, with this year's pledges, crossed over the $350,000 total for Ruth Ellis Center. And
it's so good. It's so good.
With the other orgs that participate, because it's now spread nationwide and into Canada, we've now had a total of over 150 different soccer supporters groups at every level join, and Prideraiser as a whole has raised over $1.3 million for various local organizations since 2017.
And when you hear those numbers, what does it feel like to know that you're a part of this?
It's honestly crazy. I mean, all month long, I'm constantly checking the website, getting updates on people going in, adjusting their pledges, changing their amounts, just seeing the amount of people that participate, because that's the thing. I mean, we've got people who participate at $1 a goal. We've got people who participate at $300 a goal. So this year we've got just over 160 individuals so far that have pledged, and we've still got 1 day left.
Exactly.
That's the crazy part is, we've got the numbers as of today. We are just cleared 33,600 pledged so far. And that's not even counting one-time donations, partner contributions. We're very lucky that DCFC supports this as big as they do as well. They'll make a contribution from their Pride sales for the month. So as of right now, I think we'll be able to clear $50,000 this year.
Wow, that's amazing. And have you ever cleared $50,000? We
have.
Yeah.
We've had a couple years. Last year, we cleared $58,000 total. Previous years, and it varies because part of it's dependent on donations, but part of it's dependent on how well the teams do.
Like, how does Prideraiser actually work?
So we've got a couple different methods of donation. The main one and how we started is a pledge per goal model. So each club keeps a tally. We tally how many goals are scored per June. And sometimes that varies depending on how many matches there are. Yeah. Sometimes it's just home goals. Sometimes it's home and away. And now that we have men's and women's teams, we've got an even better chance. And so you go in, you make your pledge per goal. We don't take any card information at that time. Prideraiser is just a facilitator of the donations. So we keep track of everything. At the end of the month, we send an email out to you with a direct donation link. And that's how you make your pledge directly to Ruth Ellis Center.
Now, Jam, what counts as a goal for pledge purposes? Does it matter if it's the men's team or the women's team, homo? It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. This year we did all goals for all matches because we only had 10 matches total this month. So currently the per goal total, I mean, we're at just over $1,500 per goal.
Wow.
And that was kind of the base number I wanted to hit this year. So we're doing really great. And it's just amazing to see everybody participate. It's the hardcore fans. It's the casual fans. It's friends and family who see us post about it on social media. While it's soccer-based, anybody can donate. Anybody can participate.
Yes, yes. Now, Jam, this is all at a time when federal grants have been targeting DEI efforts and cultural organizations and nonprofits in general. They have been under some serious economic strain. Now, how much more do you think this fundraising effort can grow?
I think we can continue to grow. I mean, especially with the next couple years upcoming, with the club opening the new stadium, there's going to be even more eyes on the club, on us, on our fundraising and those kind of efforts. And, you know, the more people who show up to games and come out, the more people we can actually reach in person. And I think that that's a better way to do it all sometimes than social media. I mean, social media is easy, but it's actually getting people to not just donate money, but to help us out at the tents, to volunteer and work at events. And while this is our big June fundraiser, it's not just about June. We don't just do this in June. We support Ruth Ellis Center and a ton of other local organizations all year round, whether that is helping with the funding, which is critical right now. I mean, that's a big part of it, but it's also the day-to-day. Hey, do you need physical donations of items or food or help painting a wall or anything that we can do? We want to help. This is just the biggest effort that's grown so far.
Yes. And Jay, bringing you into the conversation, just similar question, but you know, federal grants have been targeting DEI efforts. How much more do you think this fundraising effort can go along to helping the Ruth Ellis Center? Like, I mean, I know any amount helps, but when we think about just the loss of funding, how much has the how much has the Northern Guard supporters as well as Prideraiser, DCFC, and the donations helped fill in some of those gaps?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Jam, thank you for all of your work on this year. It has been just fantastic, and to do anything for 10 years, to be in a partnership of any type for 10 years is just incredible. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many great organizations in the city. There's so many great nonprofits that people can support. And for you to commit to a decade of us and to know that there's a future of this relationship and to know that this has grown from something small out of spite and into something that is so full of love and acceptance and community is something that's really beautiful. And so I think NGS and DCFC deserve a lot of credit for what this is. And yeah, you're right. We're in an interesting spot from a funding standpoint. We're looking at how we diversify our funding. We're leaning into our communities more than ever and leaning into individuals when gas is more expensive, food is more expensive. housing is more expensive and life is getting more expensive, there's a lot of other things that our community can be spending their money on, and they're continuing to choose to give to us. And so to have this type of year that we've had from a support standpoint in the context of what people are spending their money on is just, I almost don't even have words for it. I mean, I'm
true. It's overwhelming.
It is. And I think for us to lean into community, I think it not only speaks to the community of support that Ruth Ellis Center has and the way that we're leaning into a lot of grassroots support, but I think it also speaks to the culture of NGS and of DCFC. And I remember my first game at NGS, my baptism by sulfur, if you will, is how it was described to me, and how I will always refer to it. I think my clothes still smell like the sulfur, but it when you walk into a space and you see the type of community that NGS creates in that stand, you know you're welcome. And so for us, it's just as much about the money, but it's about what it shows and what it says in this city. And to take that a step further, we've got a Black, queer, lesbian woman on the front of a professional sports jersey in North America.
I know.
And to have that happening in 2026, despite what's happening at the federal level and what's happening broadly across efforts to suppress DE&I spending, it as far as I can tell, that's the first time that a Black, queer woman has been on the front of a professional sports jersey in America, and let alone an iconic one who's no longer with us. I mean, Ruth lived through 3 centuries. And so it to have that representation, the money is one thing. The money allows us to continue the work that we do, but the visibility and the support and what it says about our city, our community, our supporters in DCFC is almost priceless, right? So
thank you, Jake. This is The Metro. I'm Tia Graham. We're discussing the partnership between Detroit City FC's Northern Guard supporters and the Ruth Ellis Center. We're learning more about how a decade of Prideraiser has shown up for Detroit's queer youth. Our guests are Jam Johnston, member of the Northern Guard supporters, and Jake Lenz, Director of Development and Advancement at the Ruth Ellis Center. Now, Jake, I want to stick with you for a moment, and I want to bounce around just a little bit because, Jam was talking about the community efforts that happen outside of Prideraiser and outside of the month of Pride, especially when we talk about the Ruth Ellis Center. A lot of nonprofit partners with corporate sponsors who write a check once a year. They call it done, And then Northern Guard, the supporters show up with no marketing budget, no membership dues, just volunteers organizing themselves. Why does that kind of partnership actually fit with Ruth Ellis better than a larger corporation might?
Yeah, it's, when I think back to who Ruth was, right? Ruth and her partner were creating space in their house in Highland Park to host spaces for queer folks to be themselves, and primarily Black and brown queer folks in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And well before those spaces existed, and if they did, well before those spaces were integrated. And so it's less about what's actually going on, and it's just more about creating those spaces. And I think the LGBTQ plus community has always been so resilient and creative and found ways to do the work around the roadblocks and the pressures and the erasure attempts at our community that happen from externally. And, for us to be in a spot where this isn't about visibility, this isn't a Pride logo one night a year, this isn't a Pride t-shirt that is without a rainbow. I've seen numerous Pride shirts this year from local organizations and teams that are without any type of visibility. It is very generic. It's very all welcoming. And obviously we want these spaces to be welcoming. But when a group says we stand for this and this is what's important to us, that's Ruth's legacy, to say we're creating safe, affirming spaces. No matter how you show up, no matter who you are, to come and root for either the men's or women's team is the ultimate litmus test of what inclusion looks like in a space. And that is so tied to Ruth's legacy and the work that we do and the resilience of the young people that we serve, the resilience of the LGBTQ plus community to say, you can try to erase us, but we're going to find another way to show you. Sometimes we can show you better than we can tell you, right? And that's what queer art looks like. That's what queer performance looks like. That's what queer music looks like. And so to have a space that is doing that through sport is just another extension of what our community can do when we rally together, when we organize, and when we create these spaces that say, we're not going away. And if anything, we're going to find the spaces that we can be loud and that we can share our voice. And to have a space that NGS has created and DCFC as a whole means a lot to us, right? It's not just a rainbow on a jersey. It is a collective agreement to say, hey, this is important to us and this is what we're going to do. And it isn't pink washing. It's not rainbow washing. It is so much deeper than that, and it is so much more human than that.
I want to stop you for a moment, because when you say pink washing, rainbow washing, for folks, that may be the first time they've heard that term before, those terms before. Can you describe it?
Yeah, pink washing is more or less when corporations or organizations say we're going to turn our rainbow or our logo rainbow from June 1st to June 30th, and then it goes back, and then they support other organizations, other politicians who might be counterproductive to those efforts or what's going on. And so it is similar to any way in which a corporation is just going to say, hey, we are supporting this group and we're doing it for the visibility, but the actions don't match the words, right? The following 11 months before the next June don't necessarily match what was done during June.
Now, Jam, before we go to a quick break and bring this conversation back around, I do want to talk to you just a little bit about Northern Guard Supporters Cares and the nonprofit that you were able to create. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've been doing community work since the group NGS was started itself in 2012. There's always been different initiatives throughout the year, different groups we work with, different kinds of things. And a few years ago, we had some supporters say, we should make this a more official type of thing. So we came up with NGS Cares is what we called it. And we've been operating, doing our charity work under that name for a few years. But as of this year, we are officially a 501c3 nonprofit. Yay. We did it. It just gives us a lot more avenues in which we can fund separately from the supporters group itself and do the community work and keep things a little bit separate and kind of grow on our own for the charity work. So everything from community cleanups, donation drives. We do clothing donations for Cass Park Sundays is one of our big ones year round, and things like Prideraiser with the Ruth Ellis Center. So we try to focus on smaller community-oriented groups, other nonprofits that we might be able to help with our wide social media visibility that maybe don't get the attention that they deserve. And we've got the voice and the people, and we'll go out and say and do whatever to get things done.
You're listening to The Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. My guests are Jam Johnston, board member for the Northern Guard Supporters, and Jake Lenz, Director of Development and Advancement at the Ruth Ellis Center. Now, coming up, we'll continue our conversation and learn more about LGBTQ Pride, Detroit City Football Club, and how a decade of support for the Ruth Ellis Center has made a difference. That is next on The Metro. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Metro. I'm Tia Graham. We're still with Jam Johnston of the Northern Guard Supporters and Jake Lenz of the Ruth Ellis Center. Before the break, we talked about where Prideraiser started and how it's grown over the last 10 years. But Prideraiser isn't just numbers on a pledge tracker. It's also a real night at a real stadium with a real crowd. Pride Night at Keyworth happened just last week with both the men's and women's team taking the field. So let's talk about what that night actually looks like and what it means to show up in person in support. Now, Jam, Pride Night at Keyworth isn't just a Gold County campaign. It's a whole night. It includes Pride Night kits, a drag performance, and the NGS booth is right there in the stadium. So what does having it as a live, in-person night add to the month-long Prideraiser campaign?
It's nice to, I mean, everybody does a Pride Night, but ours is a little different. We go a little bigger. Again, a lot of
bigger,
times
go
when you
home.
have a Pride Night, it's just somebody's team is checking off a box because you're supposed to have a Pride Night, and then that's it. And again, the way that DCFC does things, I mean, they give us a booth in the concourse all month long, but with a doubleheader, it's so much busier. And you get people out who maybe haven't been to a match before. They're getting the 2-for-1 deal. They're coming out. And thankfully, with it being our 10th year, there are so many folks who already know about it. They come up, they say hi, they let us know that they've already made their pledges and that we can keep an eye out for them. But it's a chance people bring their friends, people bring their family to reach people who haven't been out before. And especially with Pride Night, it's a way to get people in the community to realize not all sports are just straight people sitting in the stands watching a sports game. It's more than that. It's building a community. It's getting to know each other. It's watching sports and being able to be obvious about it. I mean, we have banners that hang on the fence line that support the various causes. We literally have one that just says, this is going to be the gayest supporter section in the country. And that's our goal. We want everybody to just be who they are. And you can look in the stands and see, you know, it's not just a bunch of average sports fans sitting in there. You know, we get people who they come for the party and they stay for the sports. And Pride Night's a good way to do it. I mean, how many other teams are even having a drag performance at halftime? You know, they may do something or have somebody come out and speak from an organization, but to have a full-on drag performance at halftime is huge. And it's great. And the fans stay in the stands and they cheer and everybody gets into it. And it's such a good time, and it's a good way to connect in person and see the faces with the pledges and see people coming out and finally finding a place in sports where everybody is actually welcome and can be comfortable and not have to hide anything.
One of the things that I kept going back to, I kept remembering, was the conversation I had earlier this year about heated rivalry, which was, you smiled, Jam. But I just thought about heated.
I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't heard of this show.
I know. What is this? But heated rivalry. And I just think about how queer people exist in everywhere. It's not a, they're over here, we're over there. It's a everywhere type of situation. So when I think about heated rivalry, I think there are more stories like that than there are stories of straight players in leagues in general. So Jake, when you're walking into Keyworth, maybe on a Pride Night, you're seeing the booths, the kit, the drag performance, and both teams playing back to back. What does it mean for Ruth Ellis to have a physical presence at an event like that instead of just being a name on a goal tracker? Because you talked about her being on that shirt, so she's there physically as well.
Mm-hmm. I think it means a couple things, right? I think for a lot of our community to see themselves in a supporter section means a lot, right? Imagine being a young person going into sports, playing sports, these spaces that are so traditionally heteronormative and not as inclusive as they should be, right? And I think for a lot of the LGBTQ plus community, we get older, we play in a gay sports league as we move to a new city, and we engage with some of these things. But when you're a kid, those things don't exist, and it's sometimes really hard to see yourself, right? And you talk about heated rivalry. I remember that episode with Scott and Kip on the ice, and I was so emotional in that instance. And like 3 minutes later, my husband looked over at me and I was like upset and angry. And he goes, "What's wrong?" And I go, I was so in that moment. And then I remembered that it wasn't real and we haven't had this. And I was caught in this TV show. And for a minute, I realized that this was fantasy and that it hasn't existed. And that broke my heart. Yeah. It brought it back to reality. And I think that speaks to what that show did to suspend reality. But when we think about visibility for the community, when you're growing up and figuring yourself out, sometimes that visibility helps you understand yourself. And it, like I said, helps you see yourself in other people. I mean, for an LGBTQ plus young person to have one affirming adult in their life, not family member, it doesn't have to be a family member, one affirming adult in their life reduces the risk of self-harm and suicide by 40%. So imagine walking into a space that might not feel like it's for you, or where you've heard certain words or phrases used in locker rooms when you've played, but all of a sudden you show up and there is this beautiful, gorgeous, vibrant community of celebration. All of a sudden that space becomes for you. And then as I've become more familiar with DCFC and I've sat in that supporter section, I just see folks of the community. I see such a vibrant, beautiful, just diverse tapestry of people, and it creates this experience that I haven't had elsewhere in sports. And I spent most of my career in sports before I joined Ruth Ellis Center. And so to not only have been in so many of these spaces before, but then to get to come as a fan and go, no, like truly, this is the gayest supporter section, I think, in all of sports. And I kind of want a t-shirt that says that. Like,
we actually have those.
Oh,
we'll talk after.
yeah, it's good.
But that visibility, it helps us tell our story. And I sometimes think that, oh, it's drag queens and it's fan clacks and it's death drops and it's rainbows and it's this, but it's a celebration. And we talk so much right now about joy being this factor of resistance. Mm-hmm. And when we're in community and we celebrate together, we are so much stronger than we are individually. And I think that having these spaces to do that creates just such a sense of community in a world that tries to remove that from us right now.
It's so true, Jake. And just hearing the impact that heated rivalry has had on folks, you know, whether you're queer or not, no matter how you identify, it's had an impact on so many people across the board. And I am hoping that it does help shift the way that we are starting to perceive sports in general. I mean, it's time. I think it's time for us to move forward. And speaking about sports and controversy in sports, earlier this month, the Bible verses written on pride hats by San Francisco Giant players turned into a week of national headlines, of course. It also included an apology from the Giants organization, league warnings, even a senator and the Department of Justice weighed in. That was just one night. What does 10 straight years say that one night could never say about the work that you've been able to do within GS?
I mean, it just says, you know, we're never going away. We're here. We're going to be loud about it, and we're going to go for 11. We're going to go for 20. Let's go.
Jake, similar, when you hear things like this, and we're talking about affirming identities and different things like that, what does 10 straight years say that one night could never say?
I mean, it's consistency, right? For us as an organization, when we think about the long term of what we're doing, right? We've been around for 26 years, and Ruth lived to be 101. So when you put us in the context of her incredible life, we're kind of just getting started, right? And so for us, we are at a spot where that level of consistency not only gives us some assuredness of what's going on for groups like NGS and DCFC to support us, but also it's when we look at the things that we're doing as an organization. We're rolling out an endowment this year, thanks to the Children's Foundation. And so doing work like that is going to provide consistent funding for a long period of time that both allows us to weather certain periods of time, like the last handful of years and the next couple of years, but it also allows us to invest in the growth of those programs and the organization and the people that we serve during those times that are a little bit more convenient for us financially. Mm-hmm. And so having something consistent like that, whether it's something as big as an endowment or something as simple as a group of fans saying, hey, this organization means a lot to us and we're going to continue to support them, that consistency lets us continue to do the work, right? I'm in development. My job is fundraising at the end of the day. That's what I'm here to do. But when we have groups that say, you want to know what? We have a great relationship, and Jam and I met this year, and she's now a friend. Sorry, you're welcome in. I'll invite you over for the holidays.
Perfect.
But,
sign me up.
come through, chosen family. But it is such a. It's look, it's one thing on our balance sheet. It's another thing for the folks in our organization who are doing the work with the young people that we serve on the front line every day, to know that they can focus on the work and that support allows us to continue to do that work as an organization.
Now we're getting down to the wire here, having a great conversation with you both, Jam as well as Jake. Now, Jake, you were chatting a little bit about it. We were chatting a little bit about it before the break, but you said that sometimes you'll get donations in, and Jam, you can also attest to this, but sometimes you'll get donations in that are not necessarily donations of support. Sometimes you'll get donations in that come from, once again, places of spite. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about this year and some of the things that you've been seeing on the donation tracker?
And well, the funny thing is that spite is actually from within the queer community and our allies, right?
Wow.
I think folks are angry. Folks are frustrated. We're living in a world of constant inundation of being told that we as people are less, which is not true. Mm-hmm. We're vibrant. We're beautiful. Mm-hmm. We bring such a sense of self to the world that I think is a threat to systems that exist, right? And so for us, there was a recent sports signing that happened, and all of a sudden I came in the next morning and my whole team and I were, why does this keep getting mentioned? Mm-hmm. And we had dozens of donations in our inbox. And it was people saying, hey, we're donating because of this. And we did a little bit of backtracking, and all of a sudden someone within a Reddit community had said, hey, this is a great organization in Detroit, and because of this signing, we think that you should donate to Ruth Ellis Center in spite of this person. And some people are saying we're going to donate per statistic or whatever this person might do as a part of what's going on. But even more so, people are saying, hey, I'm going to stand up because I know that this is important. And what that allows us to do is then advocate with those community partners and say, hey, this is what we're seeing in the community. And if you want to be as authentic as our friends at DCFC and NGS, this is what it means to put action behind the logos, behind the words, behind the rainbows, behind the Pride Nights. And so when the community says, hey, this isn't acceptable and we're going to donate in rage. I mean, the number of notes that I see in donations that are like, because of what's going on, I don't have to tell you ... right? Like, it both makes me smile in some ways because it reminds me that we're all fighting this good fight. Yes. But at the same time, it also reminds me that people are looking for hope. They're looking for community. They're looking for a reason to feel connected. And I mean, Jam, I'm looking at you. Like, what, again, the space that you've created, like, sure, I'm out there sweating and hot in the middle of summer during these games, but like, I'm never having more fun in my life because I'm around people who see me as me and see everybody around them as who they are. And that's just beautiful.
And I think that's the key too, is it's not just for the queer community. It's for everybody who's not in that community to share these spaces. Yes. And I hate to use the word normalize, but to just bring the community together. And it doesn't have to be queer people and hetero people. Exactly. We're all here for the same reason. Whether you're part of the community or not, you can still care about it and you can still support your friends and neighbors and strangers. And that's what it takes. I mean, the community can't do it on its own. We have to come together and all support it.
Exactly. I mean, we're the sum of the parts is greater than the whole when it comes to strength and when it comes to support.
Jam Johnston is a board member for the Northern Guard Supporters and NGS Cares. Jake Lenz is Director of Development and Advancement at the Ruth Ellis Center. And Prideraiser goes on until tomorrow. Tomorrow, right?
11:59 p.m. Donations close. Get them in.
Thank you both so much for joining me on the Metro.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Coming up, a new study finds that queer people of color affirming identity and gender creates psychological strength. My conversation with the researchers who conducted that study is next. This is The Metro.